Greetings, YouTube. Today I would like to talk about the death penalty. Now, I've spoken about the death penalty in the past, and as I've made it very clear on many different forums, I am completely opposed to the death penalty. I feel the death penalty is an act of barbarism. It is an indication that the country practicing such behavior is utterly barbaric. Taking a human life in that manner is a moral abomination. I believe that taking human life without the consent of the person that possesses that life to be immoral and should be illegal. And there's nothing more helpless than a person strapped to a chair or table, being injected or electrocuted or shot. If it's illegal and immoral to kill a human life against their will in the case of a murderer, it's just as equally as bad when it's done by the state. Murder is murder, and civilized people don't murder. A murderer has proved that that person cannot function in society, so you put them in jail and you leave them there for the amount of time that the trial said they should be in. In some cases, that will be life, and that's just it. They've proven that they cannot function in society. But society must function. And for society to function, it must be better than the murderers. That we must practice our humanity and treat the murderers better than the murderers have treated society at large. So I have some data here. This is from the Pew Research Center. And it shows that in 2013, 55% of Americans supported the death penalty and 37% oppose it. That comes from a high of around 1997, I think, or 6 or 7, where 78% of the people favored it, and 18%, 18%? Yeah, 18%. It's very light font. 18% opposed it. So we're making gains, which is a good thing. Then it's interesting when you break this down on religious and racial ethnic groups. Okay, so white evangelical Protestants are 67% in favor. White mainline Protestants are 64%. White Catholics are 59%. Unaffiliated Christians are 55%. Hispanic Catholics are 37%. Black Protestants are 33%. If you break it down by broad racial groups, whites are 63% in favor of it, Hispanics are 40% in favor of it, and blacks are 36% in favor of it. Then you break it down by men, women, and age groups, education, and political affiliation. And men are 58% likely to support it, and women are 52%. By age group, 18 to 29% bracket are 51%. The 30 to 49-year-old bracket is 55%. Then you get into the 50 and older range, and 50 to 64 age bracket is 60% likely to support it. Interestingly, at the 65% 65 and older percentage bracket, only 54% are going to support it. So sometime after you turn 65, people begin to acquire a greater degree of empathy, sympathy, and compassion, and realize that murdering people is a bad thing. Republicans are 71% likely to support the death penalty. That doesn't shock me in the least. Democrats are 45, and independents are 57. Now, there was interesting I saw on the Young Turks not that long ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where they had been discussing the fact that in one particular state, it might have been Mississippi, I can't be sure, I know it was one of the southern states, 60% of the people on death row are black males, and they were in prison for murdering whites. That doesn't count the percentage of black males that were on death row for murdering black people. This is just about the percentage of black men that were there for murdering white people. So you're thinking, it's like 60%, that's a lot. There must be a whole lot of people, blacks, murdering white people in this state. So they then looked at what percentage of black people, black males, are murdering white people. Does it correlate with the 60% that are on death row for doing this crime? And they discovered that it was 6%. So blacks are responsible for 6% of white murders in this state, and yet 60% of the people on death row are black. And they're there for murdering white people. So there's a very clear indication that this is a racial issue. That juries are putting black men in prison for murdering white people at a much higher rate than they're actually murdering white people. And if you look at the demographics here from the Pew Research Center, you will see there's a reason that black people don't support the death penalty as the same high level as do whites. Why? Because they know they're being shafted. They know that people are being sent to death row for killing white people at a much greater rate than the 94% of people out there that are actually killing all the rest of the white people. Why aren't those people on death row for killing white people? I imagine most of them are Caucasian. Some are probably, Hispanic and Asian and what have you. But the majority are probably white. So the lesson here, I guess, is if you want to murder someone and you're a white person, you're not going to go to death row. And we've also know for a fact that there have been dozens of cases of people that have been proven not only to not have committed the murder that they were put on death row for, but didn't commit a crime at all. I read a case recently of a man that committed a crime, or was accused of a crime, sent to prison for a crime for 5 years, and eventually exonerated for DNA evidence. The day that the crime was committed, he wasn't in the same state, and yet he was convicted. I mean, he was in a different state. He was in Oklahoma. The crime took place in Texas. Prosecutor still was able to prosecute and successfully send this guy to jail. That's amazing. But it happens. And those things happen to people that are on death row. They didn't, not only did they not commit the murder that they're in prison for, they did not commit a crime at all. Put them on death row. Because death row is about vengeance. And vengeance is never healthy. Ever. Death penalty is about going out and beating someone because you can. About exercising the power of the state in a way that isn't all that healthy. So I'm opposed to the death penalty. And this information shows that Americans are increasingly becoming more opposed to it. So now we can hope that the opposition will grow higher, and eventually, as the opposition gets high enough, it will someday pass those that support it, and we can finally do away with this barbaric practice in America. And so hopefully someday do away with this barbaric practice across the earth. Murder is murder, whether done in the heat of passion or in a cold, clinical execution room. A death chamber is a death chamber, whether it's a person or the state.